Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin sayyidina wa habibina wa syafi'ina wa nuri qulubina wa qurrati a'yunina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wasallim. Nawayan ta'alluma wa ta'alim wa tadhakkura wa tazkir wa nafa' wa intifa' wa ifada wa istifadah والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدنيا مشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني مشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدني مشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم ألهمنا علما نفقه به أوامرك ونواهيك وارزقنا فهما نعرف به كيف ننجيك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافية يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أغننا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وأكرمنا بالتقوى وجملنا بالعافية يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم إنا نستودعك ما قرأناه وما نقرأه في هذا المجلس وما قبله وما بعده فاحفظه علينا حتى ترده إلينا وقت احتياجنا إليه يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أكرمنا من نور الفهم وأخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وافتح لنا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم يا من مقاليد الأمور كلها بيده وإليه يرجع الأمر كله يا فتاح يا عليم يا فتاح يا عليم يا فتاح يا عليم افتح علينا فتحا قريبا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وسدد لساني واهدي قلبي وافعل كذلك بأحبابي أبدا وارزقنا كمال فتوح العارفين والفقه في الدين مع كمال الإخلاص والصدق واليقين والعافية والغنى والنصر والحفظ والنفع والانتفاع وخيرات الدارين وعلوم الأولين والآخرين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. الله. Okay. Bismillah. Okay. Never mind. Okay, Bismillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. I thought I got it and then it disappeared again. Oh, Allah. Okay, never mind lah. Bismillah. Let's start the class. This kind of things, right? It really throws you off. Then, Allah. It's kind of just the technology. But if anybody knows where to get the computer fixed, the audio fixed, can just inform me. Bismillah. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We are continuing our class, beginning of guidance. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Min kitab Bidayatul Hidayah in Imam Al-Mujaddid Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin Abi Hamid Muhammad bin Ahmad Al-Ghazali Al-Tusi Al-Tabarani Al-Shafi'i الشافعي رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا به وبعلمه في الدارين إلى أن قال اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه. Okay, we are on page. What page are we on? Okay, we finished this. Then we have also done this. Right. We finished the part about salat as well. Okay. We're right at the part of salat. We're around here. Correct. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay. So as I mentioned before, that this thing about this PDF kan, there's no paging. So you can't tell what page you're on when you look at the PDF. You could compare with the book, right? But Bismillah, I think we're here. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Right, so a bit further up. Right, so last week we spoke about getting into the prayer and basically facing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the prayer. Right, so he said that so I demonstrated also how to do the sunnahs of doing the takbiratul ihram, the first takbir when entering into the prayer. So raising your hands and lowering them, do not push them forward or backward, not shame from side to side. We mentioned all that last week. Right, once you have let your hands go, raise them towards your chest, honor the right hand by placing over the left hand. We mentioned this last week. Spread out the fingers of your right hand long length to the left forearm and hold on to your left hand at the wrist. And when you say, after saying Allahu Akbar, praise be to Allah in abundance, meaning you say Allahu Akbar kabira walhamdulillahi kathira wasubhanallahi bukrata wa asila is what it means there. Allahu Akbar kabira, Allah is the most great, the greatest of the great. Walhamdulillahi kathira, and all praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly. Subhanallahi bukrata wa asila. Right, so then in doing this, then you say wajjahtu wajhi. Right, wajjahtu wajhi meaning wajjahtu qalbi. Right, I have faced my face, meaning I have faced my heart. Wajjahtu wajhi yani wajjahtu qalbi. I face my face, I face my heart. Wajjahtu wajhi lilladhi fatara as-samawati wal ard hanifan muslima wa ma ana minal mushrikin. Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin la sharika lahu wa bidhalika umirtu wa ana minal muslimin. Right, so I mean, mashallah, this is the dua iftitah. You know, if you want to start memorizing du'as and memorizing what they mean, this is one of the du'as that you should memorize lah. You know, wajjahtu wajhi. So it really directs you when you come to the prayer. You don't need anything else to recite. I know there are other people who will recite other stuff when they come to the prayer, but actually dua iftitah covers everything. Dua iftitah is from the Sunnah of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it covers everything. Right, what that has to do with the prayer, everything. Right, so to get yourself focused on the prayer, dua iftitah has done whatever you need is in dua iftitah, mashallah. Right, so wajjahtu wajhi yani wajjahtu qalbi. Right, when I face my face or I direct my face, I have faced my heart. Wajjahtu qalbi lilladhi fatara as-samawati wal ard hanifan muslima. Hanifan yani I am a pure monotheist Muslima. I am Hanifan Musliman, and I am dedicated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa ma ana minal mushrikeen. I am not of those who associate partners with inna salati. So this is the part where you really get yourself to focus in your prayer. You say inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin la sharika lahu wa bidhalika umirtu wa ana minal muslimin. And we know these are the words of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then you say ta'awudh. You say a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. This is all part of the sunnahs of prayer. So so if you learn a bit of if you've done a bit of fiqh, you would know that all these are part of the sunnahs of the prayer. To say dua iftitah and to say a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim is all of the sunnah of the salat. So if somebody is masbuq, if somebody is coming to the prayer not from the beginning of the prayer, and you're not so sure where the imam is at, then you actually skip all the sunnahs. You skip all the sunnahs and you recite Surah Fatiha straight away, because you don't know where the imam is at. You don't know when the imam is going to ruku'. Right? Or if you can hear where the imam is at and you can tell the imam is going to ruku' very soon, right, then you are to skip all the sunnahs and do the wajib straight away. Right? If you come into the prayer as a masbuq, right, as a masbuq meaning you weren't there when the imam did his first takbir. Right, so just as a note lah. But however, if you're praying by yourself, or if you're there from the beginning of the prayer with the imam, then you are to recite all the sunnahs as far as you can. As far as you have memorized, you have and you can practice, right, to do the sunnahs. If you missed out on any of the sunnahs, right, if you miss out on any of the sunnahs, then you cannot go back to it, as you mentioned previously. Then recite Surah Fatiha with all these double consonants. Double consonants meaning all the shaddas. All the shadda, or in Malay is sabdu, like all the sabdu and all the shaddas, right? Because a double consonant or a shadda in the Arabic language, right, refers to two letters. Right? A shadda in Arabic, basically it represents two letters. So if you don't do the shaddas, basically you have not recited Surah Fatiha. Your Surah Fatiha is not valid, not sah, if you don't do the shaddas of Surah Al-Fatiha. Right? So just make sure that if you need to be able, that there are 14 shaddas in Surah Fatiha. Right, there are 14 shaddas in Surah Fatiha. If you can't count them from memory, right, that means you're not doing them. one of the clearest indications that you're not doing your shaddas is that if you can't count them from memory. Right, so you test yourself, sit down, read Surah Fatiha to yourself, right, and count where are the shaddas from your memory. It's from memory, right? Count where the shaddas. Can you enumerate the shaddas? Mashallah, can you enumerate the shaddas? Right, so you go, so for example, you go Bismillah. Okay, Allah has a shadda, Bismillah, Bismillahirrahman. Ra has a shadda. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Both Ra's got shadda. Alhamdulillah. Allah has shadda. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Okay, so Rabbil, do you catch that? Yeah, alamak, missed up the bar. No, the bar has a shadda also. Rabbil, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Bar has a shadda, 5 so far. So do it that way. Okay, you're like, alamak, I didn't even know there was a shadda there, the bar. Right, but if you do pronounce it, then good lah. I mean, at least you pronounce it, even though you don't know to count it. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim, both Ra's got shadda. Maliki Yawmiddin, the dal has a shadda. Maliki Yawmiddin, the dal has a shadda. Iya, the ya has a shadda. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Right, both yas has a shadda. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Right, so go through with your own recitation. See if you are doing the shaddas in Surah Al-Fatiha. If you are missing out the shaddas, that means your Fatiha has not been correct. Not valid, the Fatiha. Right? So make sure you're doing the Fatiha. So the thing about it is that when you're doing your prayer, doing softly, just make sure you're doing it as well. Right? So you see when you're reciting it in your prayer, right? You're doing it softly. This is how you recite. Like that. Okay, so make sure that you're doing the shaddas, so you don't miss the shaddas even though it's on a lower voice. Just very careful, inshallah. Then recite the Fatiha with all these double consonants and make an effort to distinguish clearly between letters of Dad and Dha. Right, there is no Dha in Surah Fatiha, but there are Dad in Surah Fatiha. Right, our problem in our society is not the Dha being a Dha, but our Dha being a Do. Right, the Dad in Surah Fatiha becomes a Dal. And that's our biggest problem. And then say Ameen at the end of Surah Fatiha without joining it immediately, nor with your saying Walamdallin. Take a breath. Amin. Okay, this is sunnah. Take a breath between dalin and amin. Okay, wala dalin. Amin. Okay, right. It's makruh to just continue because the amin is not part of Surah Fatiha. And after the amin, take a breath. Start the next surah. Bismillah. Okay. Recite aloud in your Fajr, Maghrib and Isha prayers. That is in the first two rak'ats of each prayer, unless you are a follower or a ma'mum behind the imam, and say Amin out loud when the imam says Amin. Allahumma salli Muhammad. Okay, any prayer, by default rule of thumb, any prayer prayed in the night, these are out loud prayers. And any prayer prayed in daytime, these are by default quiet prayers. Okay, so even if you were to do a qada of subuh or maghrib or isha in daylight, you don't actually read out loud. You don't read out loud, right? Because of this is the qaida, this is the principle, right? What is prayed in jama'ah in the night, that is what is read out loud, right? So maghrib night, isha at night, subuh night, right? What is prayed in jama'ah in the day is not read out loud, right? So even if you were to do a qada, if someone were to do a qada of asr, right, in the night, and they're doing it in jama'ah, then it's sunnah for them to read out loud, right? Because the qaida is whether it's day or night. It's a matter of that, day or night. Because you never noticed that, like the prayers are based on day and night. What is out loud and what is quiet. After Surah Fatiha in the Fajr prayer, recite from the longer Mufassal surahs from Hujurat to Buruj. For subuh prayers, it is a sunnah of reciting longer surahs because the prayer is so short. Because it's only 2 rak'ats. So it's a very short prayer. So to lengthen the prayer, they actually they will recite from longer surahs. So anywhere from Hujurat to Buruj, if you have memorized these surahs, right? So surahs like Inshiqaq, surahs like Nazi'at, Abasa, right? If you memorize these surahs, then to do those surahs in subuh. And in the Maghrib prayer, from the shorter Mufassal surahs, what are the shorter Mufassal surahs? Zilzal up to Nas. Right? From Maghrib, from Maghrib to do shorter surahs. Why? Because the time between Maghrib and Isha is very short. Okay, right, so as to allow for time to pray the sunnahs after Maghrib. So between Maghrib and Isha, the time is very short. So Maghrib prayer is actually not to be lengthened, but to be kept short. The Maghrib prayers to reach shorter surahs. Zuhr, Asr and Isha from the medium Mufassal surahs from Tariq to Bayyinah. There is like in interim, if you go to the different masjids, they will have like the surahs they will recite for every single solat, right? And they have like what Imam Al-Haddad used to do, what Habib Muhammad Ali Habshi used to do. They will have like different what Al-Faqih Muqaddam used to do. They have like all the big scholars, ulama, awliya, and their practice as to what they used to recite for every solat through the week. It's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what they will recite for subuh, Zuhr, Asr, and Maghrib and Isha, and it will actually be like a muraja'ah, like it will be a revision, right, of whatever they have memorized, like from the shorter surahs. So if you have memorized all the shorter surahs, then to actually put in effort to actually have an arrangement of surahs that you recite through the week. Do not join, so it says here, such as all those of similar length. In the Fajr prayer while traveling, recite Kafirun and Ikhlas, basically to keep it short. Again, to keep it short, because you're traveling. I do not join the end of the surahs with the takbir of the bowing. Rather, pause between them for as long as it takes the Subhanallah, glory be to Allah. Basically, said the Sunnah pauses in the prayer. The Sunnah pauses in the prayer is basically after you say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, there's Sunnah to pause there. Then you start Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and you continue Surah Fatiha. Then after saying Wala dhalin, you pause. Amin. Then you pause. Then Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Start the next surah. End the surah. Pause. Pause meaning take a breath. Take a breath, pause. Allahu Akbar. go into ruku'. Right, so you don't end the surah, like, so you say minal jinnati wan nas Allahu akbar, that one's makruh. Right, so minal jinnati wan nas, stop, take a breath, Allahu akbar, and then ruku'. Naam. Right, the whole time that you are standing, keep your head lowered and your gaze on your prayer area, meaning on your sujood spot. For this provides for greater concentration and encourages more the attentiveness of your heart. You are cautioned not to glance right or left in your prayer. It's also makruh to close your eyes when you pray. Right, so you are to open your eyes and look at the sujood spot. Right, so and not to actually close your eyes, right, while you are praying. It's makruh to do so. Then say the takbir for bowing, raising your hands as described earlier, so to this level as we mentioned earlier, and prolong the takbir until you reach the bowing posture. Put your hands on your knees with your fingers spread out. Keep your knees straight. Your back and head and neck should be level in one line. It means it should be a 90-degree bow. Right, it should be a 90-degree bowing. Your elbows should be kept apart from your sides for men. Okay, for men. Women do not do this, right, but she keeps her limbs together. And they say لِلنِّسَاء كُلُّ شَيْءٍ ضَمْ. Right, for women, everything bring in. Okay, for women, everything bring in. For men, everything bring out. They bring out their elbows. For women, everything bring in. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Right, now, and then when you sujood, for women also, we mentioned last week, to bring it in, but you don't actually rest your elbow on the ground. Some women do this. It is wrong, unless you're Hanafi. If you're Shafi'i, you don't rest your elbow on the ground, but you keep it up. Right, but it's just pressed to the side of your body, not placed out like how men do. Okay. Okay, just rule of thumb also that I mentioned, I think last week, that if before i'tidal, the fingers are always spread like that. Okay, so when you takbir, you spread your fingers. When you ruku', you grasp your kneecap. When you Sami Allahu liman hamida, also your fingers are spread. After i'tidal, fingers are all placed together. So when you sujood, you put your hands are basically sunnah to be in line with your shoulders. So when you sujood, your fingers are together, pointing to the qibla. When you sit down after sujood, your fingers are together, the tips in line with your kneecap. So you don't grasp your kneecap as you sit down after sujood, but your tips of your fingers are in line with the kneecap. It's all sunnah. They're all sunnah. So just remember, right, that the i'tidal is the halfway mark in the prayer. So all before the i'tidal is fingers are open, all after i'tidal fingers are closed. I'tidal is the standing after ruku'. Naam. Okay, so you just Sami Allahu liman hamidah, right, and then Allahumma salli Muhammad. When you so this is in ruku'. Subhana rabbiyal azim wa bihamdi. Subhana rabbiyal azim wa bihamdi 3 times. If you're praying alone, you have to do more than 3 times, 7 or 10 times, up to you. Okay, you can do as much as you want. You're praying alone, you're praying in jama'ah. If you are a ma'mum, right, then you have to do, if you're an imam, you only to do 3 times, not to do more than 3. Right, to be considerate to those who are ma'mum to you. We learn very, very strongly from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam the sunnah of being considerate. Right, there is a very strong sunnah and even wajib of being considerate. Right, that if you want to do something extra, if you want to read extra, if you want to spend doing stuff that's extra, right, do it at your own time. Right, do it at your own. Basically, if you want to do extra stuff, do it at your own time, but do not inconvenience other people. Right, so if it is not permissible, one thing it can border on the side of haram, right, or makruh. Right, it can border on the side of haram or makruh, someone who is doing something that is inconsiderate. Right, so you're not to you're not to do things that are inconsiderate, right, towards other people. Right, so sometimes like some people, because they're so overzealous, just that day I was just like observing that some people, they're so overzealous about certain things, that they tend to transgress. While they're seeking blessing, they actually transgress. Right, they're seeking blessing, or they're seeking favors, or they're seeking, whatever they're seeking, right? But in trying to seek all these things, right, they transgress because they have overstepped the boundaries, and they have inconvenienced people, right, or they have hurt people, right, in their seeking of blessings, right, they have actually done the haram or even the makruh, right, by being inconsiderate towards other people. Right, so in Islam, right, it is about being considerate. So we see very clearly in the laws of our prayer, right, that consideration is of other people and their needs, and and what they have to go off to. Right, it is all compulsory in Islam. This is from a narration of Sayyidina Mu'adh bin Jabal, right, whereby Sayyidina Mu'adh bin Jabal was an imam of a masjid that is on the outskirts of Medina, and when he was imam at that masjid, he would recite long surahs, right, for the prayer. Right, so there was a man who was in the jama'ah, right, who was a farmer or he had things to do. So basically, when he entered into the jama'ah with Sayyidina Mu'adh bin Jabal, and then he found Sayyidina Mu'adh bin Jabal reciting such long surahs, so he broke off from the jama'ah, he finished his prayer himself, and he went off, right, to his own work. Right, so it so news reached Sayyidina Mu'adh that this man did that, and Sayyidina Mu'adh, claimed the man is a hypocrite, right, for leaving the jama'ah. The man is a hypocrite, right? So the man of course got upset lah, right? And then the matter was brought up to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when Rasulullah heard what happened, and the man's complaint against Sayyidina Mu'adh, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam turned to Sayyidina Mu'adh and he said to Sayyidina Mu'adh, Fatanda ya Mu'adh, right, where he said, oh Mu'adh, are you trying to be a test unto people, oh Mu'adh? And I was saying, then, are you trying to be a test on people? Isn't it enough for you, right, to recite? And then he mentioned a few short surahs, like Surah Layl, Surah Shams, and so on. Right, so it's enough for you to recite these short surahs. Don't do the long ones. Right, so from here we understand from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in fact in another hadith whereby the companions would in how they would describe the prayer of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would say his prayer used to be short and concise. Right, it was complete. Right, his prayers were complete. He never left out anything. Right, he did all the sunnahs, right, but they were short and concise. Right, so they were not draggy prayers, but at the same time they didn't fall short, right, of being full and complete. Right, so his 4 rak'ats would not take so long. It's only a few minutes, his 4 rak'ats of what is compulsory. But if they come and pray with him for sunnah prayers, then they will find him doing long standings and long ruku' and long sujuds. Right, as we know, in one of the companions, Sayyidina Ibn Mas'ud, if I'm not wrong, who stood in the night with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and said Rasulullah began sunnah prayers, and he just voluntarily stood behind the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in prayer. He began reciting Surah Baqarah, and after he did Surah Baqarah, Sayyidina Ibn Mas'ud was thinking to himself, maybe he ruku' now, right? But he didn't ruku'. Actually, in fact, the entire riwayat goes that he first read the first 100 ayats, and then the first 50 ayats, if I'm not wrong. And then Sayyidina Ibn Mas'ud said, okay, now he's going to ruku'. He didn't ruku', he continued. And then he finished the next 50 ayats. Then he was thinking, now he's going to ruku'. He didn't ruku', and he continued. Then he finished the entire Surah Baqarah. And then Sayyidina Ibn Mas'ud said, now he's going to ruku'. He didn't ruku'. He actually went on to Surah Ali Imran. And then he continued with Surah Ma'idah, Surah Nisa, and so on. He continued reciting, and with the entire recitation, with every time he came across a verse that was a dua or a commandment, he would respond to the commandment, to the dua. He came across a verse of paradise, he would seek paradise. He came across a verse of the hellfire, he would seek protection from the hellfire. So he was interacting with the Quran together. Recitation was a very long standing. It was very long, mashallah. And then he ruku'. So eventually, after reading all these surahs, he ruku'. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sunnah prayer, right? And then his ruku' was as long as his standing. Mashallah. However however long he stood, it was how long he ruku'. And this happened the entire night. And Sayyidina Ibn Mas'ud, he was so tired, right, following Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But this is up to you. If you're on your own, it's up to you, right? But if people are being troubled by you, right, or they're being inconvenienced because of you, right, then you are doing something that is wrong. Right, you are doing something that is wrong. Right, the same thing also we learned it when I was in Tarim, learned very strongly. Right, obedience to our teachers, sami'na wa ta'ana, not arguing, not trying to get your way all the time. Right, doesn't matter. There is more. We understand there is more blessing whenever whatever our teachers tell us to do. The first thing they say to us, that is what is the most blessed thing to do, right? And but if we were to argue and try to get our way, and then they usually they will allow us to do whatever we want to do, there is lesser of blessing, right? The first instruction is always the instruction, right? MashaAllah, we learned that very, very strongly lah. So it's all adab. Okay, adab, right? All etiquette, which is more blessed than to actually want to do more tasbih. But if you are an imam, not to do so. If you're praying by yourself, up to you. You can do however long you want. Then return to the upright position, which is i'tidal, raising your hands, saying Sami Allahu liman hamida. And when you're completely upright, say Rabbana lakal hamd, hamdan kathiran tayyiban barakan fih, mil as-samawati mil al-ardi mil ma shi'ta min shay'in ba'd. Right, so the Arabic is here, should be there. I think it's at the bottom there. Which is here. Right, the Arabic is here. There. Okay. Rabbana lakal hamd mil as-samawati wa mil al-ardi wa mil ma shi'ta min shay'in ba'd. Okay, right, so you can do it here. Right, it's all also in the Zakhira Musharrafah, right, in the glorious treasure. Right, basically whatever you find in Baitul Hidayah, you will find it in glorious treasure. Habib Omar basically sticks whatever's from here, he puts it there, and also in the Khulasa, you find it there. Right, so Habib Omar, he just took all of the stuff that Imam Ghazali said, and he put it into like small books. Basically, he did all the homework for us lah. He did all the work for us. All it's for us to do is just open up the books and just read whatever's in there. And okay, so after getting up there, it's a bit of a longer one. So most people they memorize Rabbana lakal hamd. Okay, most people they memorize up till there. Alright, you want to add more? Hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fih. Okay, add that one. Okay, so you go Rabbana lakal hamd or Rabbana walakal hamd. Okay, both can. Right, Rabbana lakal hamd, Rabbana walakal hamd. They're the same. And then hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fih. Okay, add that. If you've not added that, then add that first. Okay, if you have been doing that, hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fih. Okay, then add some more. Mil as-samawati wa mil al-ardi wa mil ma syi'ta min shay'in ba'd. Okay, add that one. Okay, and there's a bit more, but then for now keep to that. Right, and then if you can implement that one, then there's a bit more that we learn in Zakhira Musharrafah. Right, Allahumma salli Muhammad. There is a bit longer lah. Right, and all of this is from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you are praying yourself in the Fajr prayer, then recite the supplication of the second rak'at when standing up from the ruku'. If you're praying by yourself, in the Fajr prayer, then recite the supplication in the second rak'at when you are sitting from ruku', meaning the supplication, meaning the dua, kunut. Okay, doing dua, basically doing dua kunut. Someone unmuting themselves. Okay. So basically doing dua kunut. So then go into prostration, saying the takbir without raising your hands. First putting your knees to the ground, and followed by the hands, and then forehead. Basically, it's in order. Right? So in order of which limb is closer to the ground. Right? So if you can't remember what first, it's all sunnah. Right? So it's in order of what limb is closer to the ground. So the limb that is closest to the ground is your knees, then your hands and your forehead. So you go down and you come up same way also. So it's like the forehead, hands, and then knees, the kind of thing. It's in accordance to your body. Okay, your body and what is closest to the ground. Your forehead should be uncovered. It must be uncovered. Your forehead must touch the ground, skin to ground. Your forehead. The nose should touch the ground, sunnah. Right, not wajib, but sunnah. Along with the forehead, you should keep your elbows away from your sides for men. The stomach should separate from your thighs, though a woman should not do this, right? So for women, they should have their stomachs down, but even though, but their sujood is still inclined, you're still on an incline, and then your elbows are to the side, right? For women, place your hands on the ground, elbows to the shoulders. Do not lay your forearms on the ground. Okay, don't because this is a hadith of Rasulullah SAW where he said, do not sujood like dogs. Right, don't sujood like dogs. Do not place your hands on the ground like dogs. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Okay, someone saying here that she thought that subuh is allowed because that's where spirits are still wandering. People come home from clubbing drunk. Zoe and Isa, you know, is silent. No, basically the ruling of what is read out loud and what is not read out loud is because of night and day. This one. It doesn't have to do with apa spirits still wandering semua lah. Spirits are technically spirits. What are spirits? Spirits are jinn, right? They're jinn. Jinn wander all the time. They're around all the time. They're not around specifically sometimes, but they do run around at between Maghrib to Isha looking for a place to stay for the night. Which is why you have to close your windows between Maghrib and Isha. Right, but it's not about any like spirits or whatsoever. I mean, in Islam we don't. I mean, if what you mean by spirits would be jinn, right? They're around all the time. Jinn. There's not. They're just there, right? But we don't believe in like ghosts or whatsoever lah. Still ghosts. It's just jinn. The jinn. They're around all the time anyway. So the thing about it is that you know that it's not about the jinn and spirits or whatsoever, because the reading out loud is only for jama'ah. It's only jama'ah prayer. It's done in the night, so the makmum, they're aware of what's going on. Right? So you see, if you don't read out loud, right, the makmum might not have any clue what is the imam doing right now. Because the makmum cannot see in the past. In the past, they can't see. It's dark. Right? So they can't see, is the imam standing? Is he ruku? What is he doing? They can't, unlike Zuhur and Asar, they can see what the imam's doing. Right? So it's more of that. It's just that. Right? It's just that you recite out loud, so that you should actually standing in your prayer. It's only for that reason. That's why. Otherwise, if it's because of the jinn and whatsoever, then you will be doing it out loud for all prayers, right? Not just jama'ah prayers. So then you will be doing that, kan? Right? But it's not about that. It's just a practicality, right? Of the makmum being able to see what the imam is doing, because it's only done during jama'ah prayers and not during individual prayers. If the pointy part of your hijab actually follow over and hence covering part of our forehead during sujood, as long as part of your, so basically this part of the hijab lah, okay, my one is not too pointy enough, okay, but basically my fourth pun tak cover anything. Maybe some people they wear like I mean, they have like a big, I don't know. So the thing about it is that I personally people used to give me this kind of hijab, look at jilbab, whereby there is like, they call it awning, right? Awning in the front part. It's hard. It's like a cap that comes out in the front part. It's so hard to pray in those. I used to, like, as people used to give to me, and I wear it, but I realized when I want to pray, it's so uncomfortable. It's like it's a hard thing, on your head, so uncomfortable to sujood. So I kind of like avoided using that whenever I would go out and I know I'm going to pray somewhere. I didn't like to have that hardened part of the hijab. Then ever since then, I would always, if anyone gave me things that had that thing inside, I would remove it because it's so uncomfortable to sujood. So if you say your hijab has that kind of thing, or has like a lot of excess cloth on the front, and it falls over, if it covers your entire forehead, right, then your sujood is not valid. You have to have at least a spot, a tiny spot on your forehead that touches the ground, right? So if it covers half of it, if the other half still touches the ground, it's valid, right? Otherwise, yeah. Okay, now let me just continue a bit more. Place your hands on the ground, level with the shoulders. Okay, so place your hands on the ground, level with your shoulders, meaning that your shoulders are right above your hands. But do not lay your forearms on the ground. Say Subhana Rabbiyal A'ala wa bihamdih 3, 7 or 10 times. If you are by yourself, you have to do more. Right? So if you're the imam, do only 3. Then rise from the prostration while saying Takbir Allahu Akbar until you are sitting upright. Sit on your left foot, your left leg and foot, and keep your right foot erect. Put your hands on your thighs with your fingers spread out and say Rabbi ighfirli warhamni wajburni warfa'ni warzuqni wahdini wa'afini wa'afu anni. Okay, here is basically the sitting of iftirash. Right? So iftirash is called iftirash because the word iftirash it means to spread out. Right? So what is being spread out? Your foot is being spread out. Right? So how is your foot like? Your foot is basically very simple drawing, right? So your left foot is placed sideways. This is your left foot, right? And then you are seated on it. Okay, you are seated on your left foot, and then your right foot is erect upwards with the toes facing forward. Okay, that's your right foot. All right, and then your so basically your knees go forward. Okay, like that. Okay, you're wearing socks. I'm not wearing any toes because you're wearing socks. Right, but basically that's how you are lah. Okay, so your right foot is erect, toes pointing towards the qibla. Your left foot is spread out underneath you. You are seated on your left foot. For this is called iftirash. This kind of seating, it is because you want to stand up afterwards. This kind of seating indicates movement afterwards, right? So if you are going to rest, then you put your bottom on the ground. Okay, if you're going to rest and your bottom is on the ground, your left foot sticks out on the other side, right? Your right foot is over your left foot. Okay, and your left foot sticks out. All right. Right, so this is if you're gonna rest. That means you're gonna do your salams already. Here, for as long as you intend to move after this, you do this kind of thing. So for example, if you're masbuq, you came in late, you can do more rak'ats afterwards. You do this kind of sitting, this one, right? Because you plan to stand up after that. If you plan to do sujood sahwi after the tahiyya, then you do this one as well, right? This is only right before you give salams. Alright, I then prostrate a second time. Let me clear this. I prostrate a second time in the same manner. In every raka'ah in which there is no tashahhud, sit up straight for a moment to rest. Right, then that means the first and the third raka'ah. So sit up for a moment to rest, sunnah. Right, before you stand up. Then stand, placing your hands on the ground but not putting one of your legs before the other while rising if you're able to. If you need to, then do whatever you need to get up. Right? But if you can, so basically to stand, you use your hands to push yourself off the ground. Use your hands to push yourself off the ground. I try to avoid doing this. That means like doing like a lunge, doing like a lunge. Right? So what he's saying here, not to do this. Right? Do not do this. Right? While basically some people they might put their leg like a leg forward, right, and then they're like doing this, and then they're trying to get up lah, right? So basically, and then their hands are down or that whatever, right? So basically they're doing this, they're bringing forward a leg, to try and push themselves up. Okay, don't do that, right? But it's not haram. It's makruh. It's makruh to do so. Okay, now. Okay, begin the takbir when you are near the end of the sitting for rest position and prolong it until you reach halfway to the sitting position. The sitting should be brief, as if it were snatched. And basically, it's a brief pause before standing up. Right, then perform the second rak'at as you did the first and repeat the ta'awuz at the beginning of it. It's sunnah to do ta'awuz before every rak'at. For dua iftitah, it's only sunnah to do it before on the first rak'at. Then sit if your Then sit in the second rak'at for the first tashahhud and put your right hand on the right thigh with your fingers closed except for the fingers, the index finger and the thumb, which are left spread out. Point with your right forefinger when you say illallah, not when you say la ilaha. Right, so I'll demonstrate in a while. Place your left hand with the fingers extended on your left thigh. Sit on your left leg in the sitting that just as between the two prostrations. In the final tashahhud, sit on your left haunch. Knew it. Basically, sit on your bottom lah with your left haunch. Try to find out what that word means. With your left foot going out from under you and keep the right foot erect. Complete the transmitted well-known supplication after sending blessings onto the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So basically he's saying the du'as after the tashahhud and after salawats. There are several du'as from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can do those, and you can find those in fiqh books, which probably he will not go through here, right? But you can find those in fiqh books, right? So basically he's pointing you to do those things lah. Right? So basically, last part before I close the class. When you sit down on your let me just remove my virtual background. My hands all disappear. Okay, down. Okay, so basically, right, so when you sit down and you're doing your tahiyya, right, whether it's the first order, second and tahiyya, when you come into sitting, automatically you do this, right? So either you can hold it like a circle if you want to do it that way, right? Or you can, usually what I do is that I will extend the finger. Okay, I will extend the finger with the thumb extended like that, right? So some people, they put the thumb inside, it's also okay. Thumb can be inside, thumb can be here, right? That's how you do it, right? So then when you go illallah, then it rises. So not with the ashhadu, so you don't raise your finger with the ashhadu, nor with the Allah, but you raise your finger with illallah. So you go ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. It's a slight raising. You don't do like that. This is not sunnah. Right? But it's a ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. It's a slight raising. It's just a very slight raising. And the fingers are still soft. They're not like hard, not tegak, not hard, firm. They're just soft. Okay? Ashhadu. So this is your thigh, right? So ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Up a bit. So the illallah. Okay? So with illallah. Okay, if you miss the illallah, you miss the sunnah actually. You missed it. If you put it before the illallah, so you miss the sunnah. And basically, so if you go ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, you miss the sunnah. You go ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, then you put it up. You missed it. There's no more sunnah. There's no more sunnah. You put it up lah, but there's no difference lah. Right, the sunnah is only with illallah. Okay, illallah. Then there's the sunnah there, and leave it there. Don't ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh wa ashhadu anna muhammadan rasulullah, both are okay. And then leave it there. Okay, and you do your salawats, you do your dua at the end until you say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and you turn your head, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, then you bring it down. Okay, don't ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna muhammadan rasulullah, put down. Leave it there. Right, there's no need to put it down. And then after you give your salam, so salam is assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum, your face is forward. Wa rahmatullah, it goes to the side. So all sunnahs. They're all sunnahs. Nothing. The only thing that is wajib is saying assalamu alaikum. That's the only part that's wajib. The wajibs in Islam are very few and very simple. The wajibs in Islam. The sunnahs are a lot. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. Okay, so assalamu alaikum twice on each side, turning so that your cheek can be seen by whoever is behind you. So you turn all the way. Right? So you don't be lazy and go like 45 degrees, but go all the way. Twice on each side, turning so that your cheek can be seen by those behind you. Intend with your salams to give salams to all the angels on your shoulders and the Muslims who are on either side of you till the end of the easts and the end of the wests. Right, it is the method of prayer for one praying it alone. Right, and then he goes into the inner. Let me just finish it. The pillars of the prayer are humility and presence of heart. Right, so basically khushu' and hudur. Right, to be humble and to be present. To be present means to know what you're reading in your prayer. It's high time. If you're not memorized what you read in your prayer, it's high time for you to memorize what you read in your prayer. You've been doing it for how many years? Right, so it's high time. Sit down, open up a book that has translation, and memorize. Right, what do I read in my prayer? Memorize it word for word. Together the recitation of the Quran and the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with comprehension. Memorize. Is anything in this world for you to memorize, it is what you read in your prayer. Sayyidina Hasan al-Basri, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him, said every prayer in which the heart is not present is more likely to receive punishment than reward. And beware of his words. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, verily the slave of Allah performs a prayer and not even a sixth or a tenth of it is recorded for him. Verily, only as much of a slave's prayer as he is conscious of is recorded for him. And so how are you going to be focused on your prayer, and how are you going to be aware about your prayer if you don't know what you're saying? Right? Understand what you're saying. Meaning, it's a matter of sitting down, putting in priority, memorizing what you say. Not necessarily the Arabic, but memorizing the meaning of the Arabic. Allah has given everybody enough intellect to do so, inshallah. So let me just respond to one more question here. When we want to get up from sujood, should we be both hands from the ground, then both knees up, or both knees up, then both hands? Okay, this one, okay, in this case, right, knees up and then the hands. There is a macroness right, about getting up on your thigh muscles. Right? See, if your hands are lifted already, right? Correct? And then you use your thigh muscles to get yourself to stand up. Because if your hands are not on the ground, right, your hands are not pushing you off the ground. Correct? Your thigh muscles are basically, doing the work. There is a macroness of doing that. Why? Because it's a form of showing off. It's so subtle, mashallah, but it's a form of showing off. Like, wow, I have strong thigh muscles. I can push myself up without using my hands. No, but it's humility. It's humbleness and humility to use your hands to push yourself up, right? So it inshallah. So it does count. It does count in that way. The dua saying Allahumma inni zalamtu nafsi zulman kathiran, it is something that Nabi Muhammad SAW taught Sayyidina Abu Bakar. I did the dua after Tahiyya before salam to say Allahumma inni zalamtu nafsi zulman kathiran wa la yaghfiru dhunuba illa anta faghfir li. That one is Rasulullah SAW taught Sayyidina Abu Bakar. That dua. Okay, so it is a sunnah. Okay, inshallah that's all for today. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. One more last question. Always having time doing khushu', always think about something else, then back to Allah, then back to something, then back to Allah. Right? So if you go half, you're just gonna be doing this for the rest of your life lah. Because shaitan is always at you. Right? So just get yourself to just keep coming back. Just keep coming back. Don't indulge in your thoughts. Right? But force yourself to coming back. You're a human being. You're a human being. It will happen that you will stray. There was a story. End of the story. There was a story that Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Maryam, she loves to tell the story lah, whereby in Tarim in the past, right, to actually own a sarong, the Malay sarong, it's a form of luxury because they were so poor, right, that the Malay sarong, the sarong of the Malays, right, it was seen as a luxurious item to own, the sarong, I think kain plikat, right? So basically there was one sheikh, who was talking to his students, and he said to them that I have someone coming in from through ship, someone coming from Malaysia, Indonesia, right, and they're bringing for me some of this sarong, right, that the Tarimis love, right? It's so they love it so much, the Malay sarong. So he said that if any of you can pray 4 rak'ats without being distracted at all in your prayer, not even for a moment, right, I'm gonna let you pick whichever sarong that you want. There's gonna be green ones, there's gonna be blue ones, very nice ones. Sarong dia reward is sarong mashallah. So the students, right, they really wanted the sarongs. So they began to they were training themselves to focus on prayer, the entire time for 4 rakats. They have not a single moment distracted at all. Can anyone possibly do that? So the story goes, one of his students, basically he prays Zuhur, right, and the entire time he's so focused on his prayer, so focused on whatever he's reciting, he's in his prayer, he's deep in, he's focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the entire time, the 4 rakats. Then when he was coming towards the end of his prayer in the tahiyya, right before he was going to give his salams, he really did it. He really, in the entire time in his prayer, he didn't think about anything else except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then right before he did his salams, right, a thought came to him, and the thought said, so which one do you want to choose, the blue one or the green one? Thought this came to him before the salams, right? Before salams, he said, which one do you want to choose, the green one or the blue one? Like, and then Allah, he's right at the end of his prayer, he got distracted by the sarong. Agree on the bed. And then after he finished praying, he was told Ustad, I was, Sheikh, I was focused the entire time, the entire time. I didn't think about anything else except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and whatever I was reading in my prayer. Right at the end, I was so happy why I did that. I want to think to myself, which sarung I want to choose, the green or the blue one. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. But anyway, this is a story to show that you will go back and forth. You're human, you go back and forth. But it's a matter of you trying and being vigilant and being aware, right? Not to do this going back and forth. Okay, Fatihana Allah rizqana manafi'an wa amalan khatim musta'alim dalil huda yusur bi qabri Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi sallam wa ila arwahi mu'allimina mashayikhina wa zawil huquqi alaina wa ila hadrati Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi sallam. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal 'asr. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye. Assalamualaikum.